Hello and welcome to the special Justin Trudeau has finally fucked off edition of the Scrimshaw Show. My name is Evan Scrimshaw. We're running it back with Ben Oates. He was just on Friday for some predictions. Not to brag, Ben, but I would like to point out that I am already 1-for-1 on predictions in 2025.
Yeah, fair enough.
Ben, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm all right, Evan. Listen, today is a day that we all saw coming. You've seen it coming longer than most of us. It's a big one. And what happens today? What's done is done. What really matters now is what the party does in the next week or two. This is critical. This is our, this is our moment. We'll see what the hell happens. Let's try to make something of this.
So actually, I'm just gonna say you were the first person who actually could could sort of be a source for me and be like, actually, no, this is for sure happening. So I was greatly appreciative of, but I mean, the number of people yesterday who, I was like, I didn't want to tweet it, but like we all knew it was happening, and I was cryptically tweeting it. The number of people who are yelling at me like, "What are you talking about, Scrimshaw? You don't know anything." It's like, guys, I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't feel extremely confident in this, okay?
Yeah.
And like, we all knew, we all had sources as of yesterday. It was pretty obvious to anybody with a brain that this was coming. And I mean, he should have done it in June. He's Francois Blanchette is going to be speaking momentarily in the House of Commons. So I'm not going to be able to listen, but if he says anything notable, Twitter will tell us, so we'll be able to react live. Jesus Christ, I am supposed to be a good talker, and yet I can barely think right now. Can we not do Prime Minister resignations at 10:45 anymore, please? Can we just can we just have people resign at like 2 p.m. like a civilized fucking nation?
Hey, it's 12:15 in Newfoundland. I was up and at 'em.
Yeah, respectfully, I think I got to sleep at 5 a.m. this morning Eastern. Yeah, no, I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep, and I'm about to start drinking before noon. So delightful day that we have here. Okay. Do you want to talk about the Trudeau legacy? Obviously, I wrote a piece, Requiem for a Prime Minister, last night, sort of going over a lot of my feelings, which I'll reiterate when you're done. But like, what are your sort of like big picture as he's leaving out the door take? Like, what's your takeaway? What are you going to remember most? What do you love? What do you hate? Sort of walk through your feelings on him.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like yourself, I was watching the CBC coverage, and I can't remember if it was Rosie Barton or David Cochrane said, "This is about as it's happening on he didn't want it to happen, but it is happening, and this is a far better exit than going through the buzzsaw of an election." I think when the dust settles in 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to look back and realize, Trudeau was a good prime minister. It was by no means an easy 9 years of governance. And they were never really able to recover from COVID. Less so the economic side. Well, yeah, the economic side too, but the socioeconomic and the psychological impacts is really what kind of, nailed the coffin shut for them. But you look back at his legacy, I think it'll be looked back as one of kindness. The first government to do anything substantial on tackling climate change, the first government to, have a national childcare program, which is good for the economy, but also good for, people generally. A national pharmacare, national dental care. You could go on and on and on and on and on. Not to mention the fact that, Trump 1 was managed and we came out of that okay. The pandemic itself, right? Even though we were coming out of it bruised, it wasn't handled perfectly. No government did handle it perfectly. And I think it's good to benchmark Trudeau's performance against his class competitors. Trump 1, absolutely screwed the pooch in the COVID response. You look overseas to the UK, where the Conservatives were in government, and a succession of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak to a point too, crashed the economy and killed the Queen, all the while getting drunk while telling their people to stay inside and isolate. So history will look at Trudeau more kindly than other leaders, I believe.
Yeah, that's not a high bar. Also, would you like to hear what Jagmeet Singh has said?
Jagmeet, he's just flapping his gums with hot air, but sure.
Justin Trudeau's Liberals let down Canadians. They let you down on home prices, healthcare, let you down allowing corporate greed to run wild. They're still focused on themselves, even whatever. Problem is not Justin Trudeau. It's every minister who's been calling shots. It's every Liberal MP who's looked down their nose at Canadians who are worried about high costs or crumbling healthcare. They don't deserve another chance. Middle-class families are the biggest fight ahead. Polyo's Conservatives will cut from people to give more to CEOs. Fighter my whole life. Working class movement of fighters. Cows Conservative cuts. I'm asking them to stand together. Yada, yada, yada. Go fuck yourself. Die.
Yeah, we're not taking any lectures from the Champagne Socialist. Sorry. Jagmeet Singh is the weakest, most spineless coward of any MP in government. Sorry, I'll just say
I'm saving my Jagmeet ranting until I'm a little bit more drunk. So in the piece, Requiem for a Prime Minister, I think my problem with Trudeau is that he positions himself as this sort of person above it all, right? He was a different kind of politician, he wasn't going to play the cynical games. He was the sunny ways guy. He wanted to put an end to the sort of like hyphenated liberal, right? All of this. And then what he turned out to be is as cynical and dirty as Paul Martin, except slightly more politically, better on television, right?
Right.
He turned out to be exactly as cynical as everybody else, going from immediately, this will be the last election under first past the post, saying that to Justin Ling, which, by the way, doing like a town hall style interview with Justin Ling is the kind of like new way of politics stuff, and then just instantaneously getting, just like we all knew on the Hill that he was ditching electoral reform immediately. The committee was essentially given a mandate to kill it, not a mandate to find a way to yes.
Yeah.
I knew that, in April, May 2016, we knew it wasn't a high priority. But it's always going to be the story in the Globe is false. It's always going to be that for me, because he lied. He stood down the barrel of a camera and said the story in the Globe is false. And the story in the Globe was fucking true about Jody Wilson-Raybould and SNC-Lavalin, and it was true. And he knew it was true. And he stared down the barrel. Honestly, one of the most explicit, clear denials of a thing that was absolutely true in modern Canadian history, right? Because most of the time you get the like horrible evasions, right? But that was a clear denial, and it was just bullshit. And Justin Trudeau just doesn't seem to care about flatly lying. He's this feminist who fires Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, not just from cabinet, which, both of them resigned, from caucus. Like, he's a fucking piece of shit. He has a great legislative track record. He's a horrible, terrible, disgraceful person. Like, the fact that we're all just like okay with the fact that he fucking wore blackface multiple times, and not in the fucking 60s, in like 1999 or 2000. What the fuck? How on earth have we let somebody so patently unacceptable lead our party for a decade, or coming on 12 years now? But more importantly, how am I, like, he's an idiot. He's a moron. He has proven himself to be fundamentally, not very good at the jobs of governing. Why the fuck did it take us this long to ditch the cult of Justin?
It's a good question, and it's one that I don't have an answer to. It's one I think that
sorry. This is also the same person who tried to direct nearly $1 billion in government funding to a charity that regularly hired his mother to give speeches to the tune of north of $300,000. And again, respectfully, the moment that the moment that Margaret Trudeau takes that money, you can't give a government contract to Wade. I don't care about any of the rest of it. I don't fucking care. It's unfucking acceptable. He's a that is a level of blatant corruption that honestly the vast majority of people would never even, most politicians would never even try. But apparently to him it's perfectly fucking fine.
Yeah. And these are questions that need to be addressed in this upcoming leadership race. They won't be addressed out in the open, of course, but who do we pick? But in terms of that, the horse is dead, right? Trudeau and all of his many faults and stuff like that is gone. I personally think, and like I said, this is a discussion that we need to have within like internal party circles and make sure that we don't have something like that happen again. Make sure that we don't come out and promise something and then rug pull it the minute we're in government. Make sure that we can give solid, bankable promises and bankable policies and a bankable platform and just something for Canadians to grasp onto in that election. These are all questions that are going to need to be addressed imminently. But I don't think we should waste too much energy on beating the dead horse, right? The horse is dead. The horse is gone. I was being charitable to the Prime Minister just then and just trying, just to say, the focus now needs not to be on, his personal failings. It needs to be on, all right, that's that thorn in our side gone. Now what? And that's the now what right now, because I think, you notice something this right now. You see Yves-François Blanchet getting up in the House. You see Jagmeet Singh doing his thing. There's one voice missing who has been incredibly hard to shut up in the past couple of months/years, and that's Pierre Poilievre. And the fact that he's shut up is, I think, paying credence to. I'm not going to say my prophecy has been fulfilled that the Tories are going to implode, but I think it's the loading bar is getting full, right? There is complete disarray in terms of Tory communications in public spaces right now. They don't know what to make of this news. You have people who have been screaming from the rooftops about, oh, Trudeau needs to resign, who, now that he's resigned, saying, oh, it's not fair, he should have to lose the election. Like, they don't know what the hell they're doing. The comms are very disorganized. You got Melissa Lansman saying one thing. You got Michelle Ferreri saying another thing. You got Pierre saying nothing. And you got James Moore. They're all in chaos. That is exceptionally good for the Liberal Party. And
I've reported this many times, but Jenny Byrne did not want to win the Toronto St. Paul's by-election because she thought that would increase the chances that the Liberals would knife Trudeau.
Well, yeah, and it took them a long
correctly
time.
Understood at the time that a Trudeau-led Liberal Party was their safest and best option.
Yeah, big time, right? Because, like I said, well, we've discussed this, and it's been discussed by politicals, pollsters. The only people who haven't discussed it were internal Liberals until today, or until very recently, is that people are just checked out. They were checked out from Trudeau. They weren't listening to him. They didn't believe him, and they had good reason for this, right? There was too many scandals, too many own goals, too many blunders for Canadians to take him seriously. That's gone now. The question is, what do we replace him with? The leadership race is going to be, everyone claims it's the biggest race of the party's lifetime, but it's critical. It's going to be a big one, right? Because I think any leader who's stepping forward right now has to be under the reasonable assumption that they're going to be prime minister for a bit, but they have to be under the reasonable assumption that they're going to take the Liberal Party through at least 5 years, if not more, right? So they're going to take us through the next election and the election succeeding that. So we got to be picking someone for the long haul in here, and that's a very important thing. I will say one thing. I'll give Trudeau credit. We don't know exactly what the leadership race is going to look like yet. I've heard rumblings, but it looks like it is going to be a membership-driven process. I don't know if that takes longer or shorter. The deadline is March 24th, so I'm going to assume that they're going to have someone in for at least 2 weeks before that, maybe 3, just so they can
the timeline that I sketched, and I'll let you finish this point, but the timeline I sketched was the membership cuts off basically like a week from today.
Yeah.
Debates first week of February, ballots go out. The ballots go out, or codes if we're doing an online voting thing, which I don't think we know we have the literal infrastructure for. Ballots go out the 10th. They need to be returned by the 28th of February. You announce it at a makeshift convention, quote unquote convention, on March 1st. Obviously, that was on the assumption that we would be back, that Parliament would return on the 17th. You could move some of that back a week with the 24th. But yeah, I think you need 2 weeks to literally let the new leader write a throne speech, and pick a cabinet. And literally just be briefed by officials so that they aren't walking into the job as they're not walking into the job as literal idiots, right? There has always generally been a transition. Kathleen Wynne didn't become Premier of Ontario until February. I think February. I want to say February 13th, 2013. She was elected the final weekend of January.
Right.
The idea of that quote unquote transition, the sort of giving people time to pick a cabinet, to swear in a new minute, to decide on a new ministry, to write a throne speech, leader picked on the thing. We go to the Governor General. So let's say it's the 1st. You go to the Governor General. You go to the Governor General the 13th. That's 12 days to pick something. The new cabinet has a week together before Parliament sits, and then you let the chips fall where they may. You let the chips fall where they may in March. You said that you're hearing rumblings about what the leadership contest is going to have. Please spill those.
I mean, this is literally just little snippets. But from what I've heard / try to connect the dots on, it looks like it's going to be, I don't know time lengths, but it's not going to be caucus driven. It's going to be membership driven, which is, I think, a positive thing. This is going to sound crazy, and I know the candidates don't like it, but some of the candidates, I like that it's going to happen so fast, because it's not going to be a battle of who can raise money the fastest, right? Yes, fundraising ability will be a consideration long term, right? You need someone with a bit of not pizzazz, but stuff like that. Also, a little aside note: if anyone in the Liberal Party is looking for advice on how to set up online AGMs, I was part of the Atlantic Council Engineering Students and CFES for a couple of years. We ran that thing, and I know how to do it. So I got you.
Honestly, at some point, I might write an email. And just be like, hey, if we're doing this, I might put you and other usual guests of this podcast, Nathaniel Arfin. I might pitch both of you to some people at the party, because Arfin is one of the better website designers that I know, and tech guys. So you might be able to handle some of the back end from a literal comp tech standpoint. Because it's pretty. If we really have to do an all mail ballot selection, in the year of our Lord 2025, when the NDP managed an online voting process in 2012, I think I am going to jump out of something very high. Also, does anybody trust Canada Post?
Yeah, so it needs to be digital, and that's my opinion, right?
I just don't know if we have time. I don't know if we have the infrastructure set up, which all comes back to Trudeau should have resigned fucking months ago, but whatever. Oh, Poilievre's talking. So, it's an X video. I will try and watch it with closed captions in a second here. If you can, I am vamping. Pierre Poilievre's X account. Oh, what the fuck? I just called it X. Oh, kill me.
I thought you were talking about Jenny Byrne. Oh.
Okay. You talk. Okay. So, do we agree that there are seven? In my view, there are 7 people who can theoretically lead the Liberal Party into the next election.
Yep.
Christy Clark, Mark Carney, Melanie Jolie.
Yep.
Francois Philippe Champagne.
Yep.
Anita Anand.
Yep.
Christopher Freeland, obviously.
Yep.
Dom LeBlanc.
Yep.
Those are, I think, the 7.
Yep.
Is there anybody else? I'm not necessarily saying nobody else is going to run outside of that 7, but is there a universe where anybody outside of the 7 has an actual chance of winning, as opposed to being this leadership race is Pete Buttigieg, aka run, outperform expectations, and jump from nobody to cabinet minister?
I think there's the 3 pop to mind. I heard rumblings on CBC this morning that Karina Gold was going for it. She's been House Leader, capable hand, did not have an easy job being House Leader in this current session. She could have some interesting offerings to the table. I don't know what she's like as a policy person, but in terms of internal governance, I think that's pretty solid. Nate Erskine-Smith, I think he would. I don't think he has the exposure, but he doesn't have the buy-in of, quote, the brass yet.
Caucus would all commit simultaneous seppuku if Nate Erskine-Smith was leader, and 2, respectfully, I don't think Nate's marriage would survive a federal leadership run right now.
No, fair. And I don't think he'd run to win. I think, like you said, he'd run he'd do a Buttigieg thing, or at least try to change conversation.
Housing minister does the job for him of elevating himself to whatever the fuck comes next.
Fair ball. I think, and this might be a hot take, we've discussed this before too, but Bob Ray is a name I heard floated. I don't think he wants to get involved. I think he's looking forward to winding down and
we'll get to Bob Ray. We'll get to Bob Ray in a minute.
Having a cup of tea, but
realistically, Korean. So I don't think Anita and Karina would run in the same race. As far as I'm aware, they're decently close, but even beyond any sort of personal affection, the basic thrust of what Poilievre is saying is that all of these liberals are just in it for themselves, and they're all just all of them supported Trudeau, so they're all the same. Nothing has changed. That's the general tone of this position.
And that's weak messaging, man. That's not going to land.
Yeah, no.
Right? That's weak. Canadians, Poilievre's walking into this election with a net negative polling, personal opinion polling, right? I don't think that's
okay. No. I need to do this right. He is net negative in Angus Reid. He is neutral in Abacus, and he has been bouncing around neutrality in Abacus this entire time. But people always quote the Angus Reid because Angus Reid doesn't have a neutral option. Sorry. This is one of my great complaints in life is people who use Angus Reid. Because I have made this mistake before, and the problem is that this is a disaster. Fuck Lisa Raitt. Why the fuck are you on my television screen? Fuck you. Lisa Raitt is... I hate Lisa Raitt so much. Anyways, make the point that yes, Poilievre is not in this position because people are in love with Pierre Poilievre. They're in this position because Justin Trudeau sucks, and now Justin Trudeau's gone.
Correct. Lisa Raitt, I personally have a bit of personal respect for her. She dealt with a lot with her husband who suffered with Alzheimer's. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, so I get it.
Sorry, to be clear, I have respect for the circumstances she found herself in. As a cabinet minister, she can fuck off.
Fair ball. But yeah, so Poilievre is not walking in like you've said. He started to gobble up his own droppings in the sense that he's starting to actually think that people like him, right? People don't like Poilievre. Like I said, the Canadians do not vote for people. It's a feature, not a bug. And now they're going to have to figure out, or if they want to form of majority government, because I think it's, I don't know. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but Poilievre's not popular. His policies are not popular. His way of going about things is not popular. Social conservatism across the broad strokes of the country is not popular. Sure, on some issues you might get some, more social conservative views, like you said, on gun control or, whatever. But broad strokes across the country, his branding, his messaging is not popular. The thing is that the median Canadian voter was sick to death of Justin Trudeau. The question of this leadership race is a leadership race, but also the next election, because Trudeau's gone now, is, are they sick of the Liberals, or were they just sick of Trudeau? And I don't know if there's enough polling data out there right now. I do not think, in my heart of hearts, I do not believe we are headed for a 1993 scenario, just because it's apples and oranges comparison, right? I think whoever the leader is right now needs to be enough of a contrast from Justin Trudeau that, people will feel comfortable voting for them, but also enough of a contrast from Pierre Poilievre, in the sense that we don't want someone who, like, there's an instinct. The Conservatives have something called, like, Tory fever. They freak out every time they lose, but there's an instinct that I'm picking up on within certain Liberal circles to swing right, or at least go to the center. And on a policy standpoint, no, I don't think that's what we need to do on a policy standpoint. Messaging, maybe. That's a conversation that's worth having, I think. Maybe we don't wrap it up in the whole, quote, virtue signaling, unquote, thing, right? Maybe the messaging moves a bit more center or disappears altogether. But on a policy standpoint, like you said, the narrative of the budgets do poll well. I think that's a lesson that any leader can take forward. I think that we need to resist the temptation to swing to the center, because Canadians.
Well, okay, I'm gonna push back on that.
Let's hear.
How are we defining the center as a thing that we should not pivot to? Because David Coletto did a huge and very valuable sort of deep dive into what the actual quote unquote center of Canadian politics is.
Yeah.
And the big thing is that, like, economic sort of progressivism or economic populism is a bigger chunk of the electorate than people realize. But what is happening is that conservatives are now winning economically progressive, culturally conservative voters in a way that they have not before. So you're not taking my fucking guns, but we do need to spend more money on to make sure that, my rural hospital keeps an ER closed, or keeps the ER open. Exactly. I should say. Like, that is a lane for the Liberals, and the thing is, they have done some economic populism, right? Like the cap gain stuff. Like, respectfully, as much as the Globe and Mail might scream about it,
they can scream all they want. Like, that's just Bay Street. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's the kind of thing that a new leader can sell better than Justin Trudeau.
Correct.
And I think the Liberal Party has, like, a fairly easy pivot to make, which is to say, abandon some of the stuff that's going to make people like me super happy. I think the gun stuff, like, I have never been particularly persuaded that the gun stuff, like, is even, like, on a policy merit workable, right?
Yeah.
Ditch the gun, ditch the anti-gun stuff. Like, I'm sorry, respectfully, we're not America, right? Like, we're just not. This is not the same problem. Like, whatever. Yeah. But ditch the gun stuff, pivot to the right on drugs policy, claim you want to restore some of the older policies on bail, and continue to bash Bay Street. Like, feels like there's a lane for a politician who's willing to do that, especially if you're Chrystia Freeland, who, of course, was the finance minister who delivered the cap gains change in the budget. Like, and I guess this is just going to get into what the second half of this podcast is going to be, which is just like, let's go through the 7. LeBlanc, I don't think LeBlanc has a lane. I think let's go through them by my order of likelihood of winning, which is to say, I think LeBlanc is in 7th.
Yeah.
Atlantic Canada has only, has less than 10% of the points, right? Even if he runs, which I don't think is by any means for sure. he's just not going to have. I don't even think he can sweep Atlantic Canada in some huge landslide. But like once you get like fucking west of Quebec City, like does anybody give a shit who Dom LeBlanc is? If you're looking for a centrist, right? If you're looking for like an experienced, credible centrist, Christy Clark is your candidate, not Dom LeBlanc. If you're looking for like a sort of steady-handed the tiller, Freeland's probably your candidate, or Christy Clark. If you want somebody who is not tied to Trudeau, it's it's Mark Carney is your realistic choice, or Christy Clark. The left of the party is going to hate him. The regional politics don't work very well. I don't know how he has a path in this contest.
Mark Carney or LeBlanc?
LeBlanc. I don't think LeBlanc has a path. I think he's in seventh. I think that he's going to have a come to Jesus moment and realize that his only path was through a caucus vote. We aren't getting a caucus vote, and I think he's going to fuck off. Fair
ball. Well, let's just preface this by saying until these leadership candidates, until we know who they are and what their deal is, let's not try to peg them into the hole. But past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior, right? So I
just refuse to believe the Liberal Party is gonna endorse literally endorse Justin Trudeau's babysitter.
Yeah, no, I don't think like you said, we need a departure from the Trudeau era, and I don't think LeBlanc is that, because LeBlanc was the point man that Trudeau sent in when Freeland left.
Yeah,
Freeland has put enough distance. Well,
we'll get to no. We're going bottom to top. I know how to do good content. We'll save the Freeland conversation because I think she's one of the front runners. I don't know that I don't know that I'm happy about the fact that she's one of the front runners, but she is one of the front runners.
Right. Well,
I think bottom to top. Melanie Joly. Let's have the Melanie Joly conversation, because you are significantly higher on Melanie than I am. She's clearly ambitious. She has a lot of support within the caucus. She's one of the better fundraisers in the party. Her tenure at Foreign Affairs has been disastrous. There's the Justin Ling, it's colonialist to appoint ambassadors to places story that is, gonna play badly. I worry for her, if I were her, is that one, a lot of her support's going to be in Montreal, and the point system that the Liberal Party uses, 100 points for every riding. She is going to, even if she has a lot of support in Quebec, it's going to be concentrated in the West Island and Laval. And I don't know that she, even though she's the quote-unquote Quebec candidate, I don't think she's going to have a lot of support in your Chicoutamis, your Boyces, your Gaspésies, your Lac Saint Jean's. I don't think she's going to have a lot of support in the regions. And if you don't have a lot of support in the regions, then the point system works against you. I think, frankly, there's a better Quebec candidate, which is going to sort of box her out. And frankly, I just don't think that the Liberal Party views Melanie Joly as. I think we're going to want an intellectual upgrade on Justin Trudeau, and I don't know that Melanie Joly will be seen to be an intellectual upgrade on Trudeau.
Fair ball. My personal opinion on Melanie Joly is I think she's underperforming in foreign affairs, not for lack of trying. I just don't think it's her wheelhouse. Before she was foreign affairs, she was minister responsible for ACOA, the Atlantic Canadian Opportunities Agency, and a bunch of other things, and she did very well there. She linked up with industry here. She was approachable. She was charming, which does play a role in it. And also, I think this is the most important thing that we need in a leader: receptive to anything. You could basically throw anything at her and she'd listen. Would she agree with you? No, but like that's a good sign, right? It's a good. You didn't feel like you needed to be afraid to go tell her whatever, right? I think Melanie Joly has leadership potential in the sense that she mightn't be the person you want to lead up your foreign affairs, your finance file, but she is someone who can, I believe, rally people behind the Liberal flag, which is someone you want in leader. Is the intellectual and the experience there to like pick a decent cabinet? I don't know. So fair enough. I don't think Melanie Joly is a front runner for this race, but I think that we'll see more of her in times coming.
Yeah, it's possible that if you gave her another sort of like meaningful but not this portfolio, she would look better. But yeah, I don't think she's a serious contender in this. I think her path would have been to get basically the Quebec caucus around her in a caucus vote, but it's statement from the Liberal Party president, by the way, confirms there will be a nationwide process. There's going to be a meeting this week. They'll use basically the equivalent of force majeure clauses in the Constitution to force ram through the rules, and but it looks like we're getting that this week. To everybody who is trying to tell me that, like, oh, the Liberal Party Constitution matters, no, it doesn't. It's a fake document that we rewrite every 10 years whenever a new leader wants to rewrite it. Fuck off. Okay, can we just Mark Carney? Who is a more actually? Let's do it this way. Who is a more viable candidate, Christy Clark or Mark Carney? Both of them are outsiders. Both of them are more on the. Both of them code as centrist. I mean, if you actually read Mark Carney's book, he's not actually particularly centrist, but he's like a Laurentian elite with a lot of history ties. So like he codes more centrist than he really is. Obviously, neither of them have particular ties to Justin Trudeau. Neither of them served in this government. Neither of them been an MP under Trudeau or minister under Trudeau. But I do think that they are competing for a lot of the same votes, which is, certainly they're competing for the same donor base, but they're certainly competing for the same votes, which is time for change. We can't trust anybody who has currently had the job. So who do you think is more viable between those two?
I don't know. I will be honest. I'll level with you. This is before seeing what kind of platform they would roll out. But first glance, looking at both of these candidates, I really have a gut feeling against Christy Clark. Yes, she was BC Liberal like leader, but that is equivalent to a progressive conservative out east, right? I don't think Christy Clark would do well in Quebec, and I don't think she'd do well in Atlantic Canada. Now, I think the same problems would befall Mark Carney in Atlantic Canada, but I think he'd be able to do better in Quebec, especially with the Montreal Laurentian people, right? So I think before I see anything that these candidates lay out, I seriously think that in terms of, the way they present themselves, not only to Canada, but also to, the party itself, out of the two, I'm going to take Mark Carney begrudgingly. They're not my top two, to be honest. Christy Clark, I would make seven.
I don't see the Christy Clark thing at all. This is entirely just media fascination because she has been a reliable quote to the media for 15 fucking years. Like, let's just be so fucking for real. Christy Clark led a center right free enterprise party in BC. She has been a federal liberal, sure, but like she has been pretty anti-Trudeau for years because she wasn't given a Senate seat that she very obviously was campaigning for both privately and publicly after she lost the 2017 election. It is a true position. The point system really fucks Christy, right? Like,
yeah,
she barely can speak French. Well, she couldn't speak French and has been spending time learning French, but 5% in, like, the second that you get 5% in Quebec on the first ballot, you are hitting a wall pretty fucking fast. I don't get the Christy Clark thing at all. She is Jean Charest, and I was right about Charest getting 16% of the points against Polyev and fucking off. And I just don't see how Christy Clark is an analog candidate for a digital time.
Correct.
She is a fiscal conservative, socially liberal, sort of like old school Bay Street, blue liberal at a time when economic populism is the name of the game. And I just don't understand why people think she's a viable candidate. She's not.
I don't know. Maybe it's, in times of strife, you go towards what you recognize and people are crying for the Chrétien days. I don't know, right? I don't think Clark is a viable candidate. I don't think, like, personally, if Clark was leader, I don't even think I would have the volition to get off my ass and go vote, right? She wouldn't get people out to vote. She wouldn't get people out to donate. Again, this is before we've seen anything substantial from any candidate, but just based on the way she governed BC, but also the way she's kind of gone about things, No. I also think this is
Also, the left of the party will have a fucking conniption if they're her and probably voted.
and the left of the party is a bigger chunk. Yes, we might be dirt poor and we're peasants, but like we're a bigger chunk than the center/center left, right?
We managed to drag Naderskin Smith to 48% of the fucking points in a leadership race that was essentially rigged for Bonnie Crombie.
Yeah, so like there's Christy Clark will be like Hillary Clinton, in my opinion. Hot take, right? That's just, again, I'm not basing that on any fact, but like right. And this is not to say that I think Chrystia Freeland, again, so I heard someone say to me, said, I don't think Christy Clark should run because, I don't think we should put in a female leader. Bullshit. I think some of the best candidates in this race are females. I think Chrystia Freeland is strong. I think Anand is strong. Corinne Gold, whatever. Christy Clark, there's just something there that doesn't, it's like, I don't think she'd get people out. Carney would have the same problem, but he'd get more people out than Clark, especially in Quebec and especially where it counts, right? Atlantic Canada, yeah, he has less in common with me than who knows what, right? Mark Carney, I'd love to see him go out cut wood with me. It'd be hilarious. I don't think the fellow would know what to do with a chainsaw, but that's fine. You're not going to please them all. I'm very curious to see which way this goes.
The other thing about Carney before we get into what I think is the top tier of genuine contenders, the thing about Carney for me is that his record as a central banker and his record as a sort of like pundit, sort of public intellectual since he left the Bank of England is not particularly impressive, right? Like his record as Bank of Canada governor was definitely suspect. Mike Moffat and Stephen Gordon were criticizing it heavily at the time before he left for England.
Yeah.
He led an overly tight monetary policy that choked growth, which led to the fact that we were so susceptible to the oil price crash of 2014.
Yeah.
And his record in England is pretty is mediocre at best. His judgment is terrible, right? Flirting with the Liberal leadership when Justin Trudeau in the leadership race that ended with Justin Trudeau winning, and then the sort of like the fact that he intervened in the Brexit campaign. Again, these are not things that inspire confidence in his ability to run a national leadership campaign well. And the thing about Carney is that if you're going to run on sort of like expertise and genius to sort of like paper over legitimate criticisms of your policy stances and the fact that you've never run a political campaign, it's probably not a good thing that there are a hell of a lot of really smart academics who will probably spend most of that leadership race actually pointing out that you're a fucking idiot. And not that you're a fucking idiot, but that you have made big mistakes before. And the other thing about Carney, like, I think it was in the Star that it was the first Ontario caucus meeting after Naderskin made the cabinet, and he basically said, like, who are we replacing Trudeau with is an important question. Nate obviously had Mark Carney on his podcast, and I'm pretty sure Christy Clark was definitely in Nate's crosshairs, but like, he also didn't seem particularly enthusiastic about her Carney candidacy, which, as somebody who has gotten to speak to Carney for an hour, is not a great sign that more exposure to Carney makes people more excited for Carney.
I agreed. Again, this might sound a bit pedestrian of me, but I think there's enough leadership candidates in here that we can get someone who has, quote unquote, the pedigree, and then also someone who has the curb appeal. I think Mark Carney you could argue he has the pedigree. Like I think Mark Carney would be to anoint or for Mark Carney to win a leadership race would be a sign that the Liberal Party has not learned its lessons from the Trudeau prime ministership, in the sense that I think his would be a continuation of the same pattern of thought that we've seen from this Prime Minister Trudeau, right? We'd see an isolated PMO. We'd see it's my way or the highway. We'd see, exactly, right? And I think that Canadians would pick up on that
instantly, and we would get slaughtered for it. I think Carney is Ignatieff 2.0. Again, nothing. This is before we've seen anything, but I think if anybody from Carney's camp is listening, keep that in mind and show us what he's got. Why? I think any candidate, regardless of who, needs to be asked this question, point blank. Don't prep them for it. Why are you a liberal? And judge them on the merit of their answers. People
Mark
who are
Carney's answer is absolutely, because that is the available option for him to continue to be a relevant human being.
Yeah, and Christy Clark's is probably a similar answer, right? It's like, because someone who doesn't have a good answer is going to stutter and sputter and not have a solid one. I think people like Friedland, like Jolie, like Karina Gold, like Bob Ray, like Nate, like I don't know, running, but I know lots of people in cabinet and caucus who would be able to give brilliant answers as to why they are in this party, why they're in this fight, right? And no, I'm not looking for like grandiose like statements here, but we should be able to sniff out who's in for right reasons and who's not, because Canadians will sniff that out instantly.
Yeah, for sure. There's a reason that the Ignatieff he didn't come back for you worked. It's not just because there was a big ad buy behind it. It's because people genuinely because it was a plausible attack.
People like I fear that the Carney and Clark, and maybe to some extent LeBlanc, would suffer from the same thing Ignatieff did. Is the people would just be, they wouldn't care, right? They'd just be like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like,
yeah,
who's this?
for sure. I mean, LeBlanc. I mean, here's the thing: if LeBlanc was really this great of a fucking thing, he would have had a bigger job by now.
Well, yeah, he's finance minister.
He might have been made finance minister in 2020 if anybody actually thought he could do the job properly.
I know. That was
I laughed. It's just like the Dom LeBlanc people I think are my no. Turn on are still my least favorite people on the internet right now. Okay. I don't think Francois Philippe Champagne can win. I think he can come third because the point system really helps him, because there are gonna be like 17 people who vote in all these like Chicoutimis, Boyce, Richmond Arthabascas, your Atibitibis, like all of these kinds of seats, like there's going to be a fairly small membership. Champagne is going to just clean up there. He's not going to necessarily be the sort of strongest candidate on the island of Montreal, but he's going to be able to command a decent proportion of the Quebec points. And as Quebec is, the second biggest province in Canada and the second biggest source of points, he's going to be able to clean up. I don't know. My whole thing with him is that I don't think he can be the king. I think he can be the king maker. And I think that if I were him, I would probably not. I don't think I would run. I think I would pick who I want to be the leader and sort of, use every connection, all of that power, all of that influence to get them there, and then just take the sort of DPM and finance minister job that, when I wrote the like Anita non sort of Francois Philippe Champagne quote unquote ticket, that was sort of my idea. I still think that's the best of, admittedly not a particularly great set of choices, but I just don't see how Francois, and I quite like Francois. I think he's a very, very good leader. Theoretically, I think he would certainly make a very good prime minister. He's been in economic portfolios. He's been in foreign affairs. He's done well in almost every industry he's been. I just don't know if he can win enough points in Ontario to actually win the leadership. And I don't know if the 905 is going to back him. I just don't know if Ontarians who want a leader who can salvage some 905 seats are going to think a Quebecer is the best way to win back Brampton or Mississauga.
Well, this begs the question. Are we trying to win this election, or are we just trying to become the official opposition?
I mean, the answer is the second, but I think that like winning 6 seats between Brampton and Mississauga is how you win 80 seats.
Yeah, fair enough. There's the government, the Liberal Party needs to recognize 3 things to survive, in my opinion, right? Make sure the Bloc doesn't eat your lunch in Quebec. Make sure you don't lose any ground in Ontario. Gains might be up in the air. And make sure you don't lose Atlantic, because Atlantic is not the safe bastion of liberalism that everybody thinks it is, right? The Tories are running some really strong candidates down here, especially in Newfoundland. I don't know what the race looks like in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, but my riding of St. John's East is traditionally a three-way race. The NDP are no-show, MIA, as per usual. But, you got Minister Thompson, Joanne Thompson, who's the Liberal MP and Minister for Seniors right now, running against the Tories have put in a former leader of the Progressive Conservative Provincial Party here, who is well known. I won't necessarily say well liked, but well known in the district, right? It's not the safe giveaway. So if not to sound biased, because obviously I have intrinsic biases, I'm in Atlantic Canada, but make sure we don't get our lunch eaten in Quebec by the Bloc. Make sure we don't lose Atlantic. Make sure we don't lose any ground in Ontario, and try to pick off some seats from the NDP wherever possible. That's the number one area I think that we could pick off some ground from, is people who are disillusioned with Trudeau, but receptive to center left ideas, and who realize that Jagmeet Singh is a lame duck.
Yeah, and I think look, I have been thinking about this a lot. I think Freeland is the favorite to win this thing, and I also think that a Freeland leadership is not the right idea, because I don't think she has undone all of the damage of her time as DPM and finance minister just by resigning, and I think that she is not a great communicator. I think the cancel Disney Plus to fight inflation quote is going to hang around her neck. I think the vaccination quote is going to hang around her neck, but I also can't shake the feeling that she is the closest thing to a quote unquote unity candidate for all wings of the party. She's done some economic populism. She's not considered to be as left wing as Trudeau. She was pro Trudeau, but she also stood up to Trudeau. Unfortunately, I kind of think it is her leadership race to lose, but I don't like that fact, because I don't think she'd be a good PM.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any arguing that she was the kingpin in this government, right? As soon as she left, the arse fell out of her, gone. So yes, I agree. Whether she wants it or not, I think she does.
She absolutely does.
Yeah,
that I can exclusively confirm here.
Yes, I think her day-to-day comms have been lacking. Again, but like I said, I don't think we need a star candidate. I think that's how we lead with to blunders like that we have. I think having someone a bit more low-key is not a horrible thing. Again, it'll have to be based on the substance, but first glance, Chrystia Freeland was tightly associated with the Trudeau government, but I think she will be a good unity candidate. I think she'd be able to pull support from across the board. The one thing I'm wary about in this race is that we should let's be realistic with their expectations, in the sense that I saw somebody on Twitter say that they should put Christy Clark in because she's from out west and be able to gain support out west. Absolutely the fuck not. For all intents and purposes, assume that we're gunning for second, right? Go shoot high, aim high, but no. Stick to our core here and try to gain ground wherever possible, fight for every seat, and put in the best candidate that embodies what Canadians are feeling right now. And would Chrystia Freeland be able to do that? I don't know. I think if we're judging based on her record, possibly. I think she has all the right ingredients there, but some mixed signals on what she'd actually pull ahead with.
So I am obviously, I agree with a lot of that. I'm obviously Team Anita. I sort of, planted my colors to the mast on this one already.
Yeah.
The case for her is that she might actually be in the sweet spot of served in the government, has a profile, can't be accused of being disloyal to Trudeau, but also respectfully doesn't have any of the verbal flubs, doesn't have the gaffes, and frankly is not particularly associated with Trudeau because she is a more anonymous name.
Yeah, well, it also helps that Trudeau.
Choosing an argument that I want to be true instead of an argument that is true, or does the case for Anita being the candidate that can walk the tightrope of sort of legitimacy, but also change, continuity and change? Am I crazy? Like, is this just motivated reasoning, or am I like actually in a reasonable headspace?
I personally think, at their core, I think Anand and Freeland are class competitors, in the sense that they are afflicted by some of the same ills. But also, I think Anand, like you said, has an advantage in the sense that the portfolios that she was in charge of when she was like Minister of Defense and stuff and Treasury Board did well. She's proven herself as a good manager. I don't know if she has the quote unquote ambition. Maybe that's not a word, but like, I don't know if she has the hunger for it to get out and try to like knock doors and pull fundraising, right? I agree. I think she'd be a very strong candidate. I think she'd be an excellent prime minister. I think the best thing that ever happened to her was counterintuitively was Trudeau shelving her and putting her on Treasury Board.
So to be clear, she asked to be moved from defense. My understanding is that she wanted an attorney general, but Trudeau was like, "Oh, you want to move? I'm gonna shove you a Treasury Board." Now, I can't like confirm the AG thing as much as I can confirm, but she did not want to stay in defense in the 2023 shuffle.
Yeah,
for sure.
The only question mark I have with Anand is how would she get people out to vote? What's her sell, and how would she sell it? I think Freeland has enough hunger for it and has clearly shown a commitment to it, considering that she knifed the PM in a spectacular. People say she's not a good communicator. Yeah, day to day, that's not true. But that resignation was a masterclass in how to make a dent, right? So the question is, does Anand have that same kind of drive? Would she be able to get out in front and rally Canadians behind her? Because, like it or not, that is a big thing, right? It'd be convenient if everybody voted on the merits of someone's accomplishments and abilities, but that's not the game, right?
But I've been told that turnout isn't that turnout, doesn't that the leaders don't make any impact on turnout, and that the fact that like 11% of the population voted in Cloverdale proves that Justin Trudeau isn't actually unpopular, as opposed to the fact that only like 11% of people or whatever voted because Justin Trudeau is about as popular as drinking your own piss.
Exactly. Like, you can pundits gonna pundit. Reality is that it does play an impact on it, right? Because maybe in 2021 the Liberals squeaked by saying, "Oh yeah, Trudeau, meh," but look at the cabinet, look at your candidates and your ridings, right? And they squeaked by. I know that was the strategy employed out here, at least, and it worked, right? So that's not going to work in this election. It's going to have to be like, we need someone who can like hoist the colors and who we can rally behind. I know I'm not going to put my name on anybody's masthead right away. I'm maybe too cautious for my own good. I literally want to see, Evan, I want to see what each of these people are offering, and then I'll come out and say a comment, and then I'll make my judgment accordingly. But and I think
I will. I mean the thing is that, like, we don't even know who's going to run, right? Like, we're talking about the 7 people who could. I would expect I think Carney and Clark are both definitely running. Freeland, pretty sure he's running. The other 4, if I were them, I think you could very easily make a case to any of them for why they should run. And you could absolutely make a case for why they shouldn't.
I'll make a case for why they should run, is that our leadership race between Clark, Carney, and Freeland is not a diverse enough pool of opinion, right?
And also, respectfully, like, I think a lot of times, like, remember, Aaron O'Toole was a massive underdog to win that 2020 Conservative leadership race.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh, Peter MacKay, biggest name in the thing. Like, respectfully, the conventional wisdom on who is going to win these leadership races tends to be pretty fucking dog shit. Nobody thought Dion was going to win in 2006. Nobody thought Scheer was going to win in 2017 for the Conservatives. Like, conventional wisdom and like who the media pundits think is good at this is not a reliable predictor.
Yeah, no, we're just pissing into the wind here. But I think it's better instead of saying, "Oh, this person's gonna be leader." I think it's an important thing for our party and for your listeners to consider. Don't back the biggest horse. Just literally take at face value. If there's one thing this party needs, is more internal scrutiny and a bit more like let's iron out the wrinkles before we go before the public. Because as soon as we go before the public, we're going to get rinsed. It's
So
just
what you're saying is that I should not be excommunicated for daring to suggest that not every liberal is perfect?
No, I don't think. Listen, no, nobody should be excommunicated for that. Listen, the highest form of affection and loyalty you can show to someone is criticize them behind closed doors, right? When you get out in public, I'm not speaking about you specifically, Evan, because I know you were a staffer. I know you definitely did these things on the Hill as well, and then you go public and all that stuff, right? But if we can set up a mechanism whereby the PM or whoever is receptive to criticism, not only from the membership, because that's most of that's going to be junk, but as long as the MPs and the cabinet ministers can get a hold of the PMO and the PM, that's a good change to make. We haven't seen that. Like I said, Sean Halliburton was reporting on it or saying that this PMO has been very isolated. That's got to change. So yeah. Open criticism is a good thing. Make your mistakes inside your own house before you go out in front of the public.
For sure. I will say I'm a little. I don't even know what I want to say about this, but like it is a very weird thing. The fact that we're about to enter a leadership race where I am not merely a commentator, but I am both like this weird sort of hybrid of a commentator, but also like a combatant on the field. Because like with Naderson Smith, it was his Ontario leadership race, like that was pretty easy for me. Like that was, I got to interview him, which was fantastic. But like that felt sort of, I don't know why, but it felt. I mean, respectfully, it felt lower stakes. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do in this leadership race because it's like it is somewhat frightening on some level that like people give a fuck what I have to say. And I'm not claiming that a column of mine is going to change who's going to win. That's not my argument. But it is slightly insane to me that the number of people who give a shit about what I have to say give a shit what I have to say. And I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to do about this. And I'm kind of freaking the fuck out a little bit of like, there is like a responsibility that comes with power. And I don't want to write any of this because it sounds really fucking conceited in print because you lose tonality and you lose a sort of like whatever. But Jesus, man, like I am a player in this saga, and as fucking nonsensical as that is, it's true. And like that's kind of fucking insane. Can we just be honest about this?
Sure, it can be insane, but it can also be true at the same time. Listen, you've got that power. You've built it up honestly with your two hands, right, brick by brick. I know it has not been easy. I know you've there's enough whiskey been drank to you that you probably deserve by this point, but wield it well is all I'd say, right? And I think you are wielding it well. And let's try to keep pushing and make this party better. Let's again, now that, like I said earlier in this episode, now that the horse is dead, horse being Prime Minister Trudeau, let's stop kicking it and let's focus on what we need to do is put in a new leader and then absolutely put the boots to Pierre Poilievre.
Right. That's the thing. Like I'm probably gonna like I don't even know how much I'm gonna cover the leadership race like as a quote unquote leadership race on the blog. I might just I don't know. I'm thinking about just pivoting to like ideas for the next leader and or like because the one thing, and this is like incredibly considered, but like I am aware of the fact that I'm a good writer. Okay. Like respectfully I am. I don't care that it's arrogant, it's true. it if one of the ways that I can be constructive to whoever the fuck wins next is by influencing both the ideas that they put forward, but also the sort of like tone and tonality, that I think is a contribution that I can make. I'm just incredibly conscious of the fact that, like, I want to be productive, right? Like, the reason that I wanted to get rid of Trudeau is because I care about the party. And I care about the party more than I care about my personal vanity or my standing with the next leader.
Yeah, no,
And
exactly.
I want to make sure that I do this, whatever this is, in a way that is still useful and conductive and conducive to the party.
Yep. And I think I think you've done well, Evan. I think, if you're not given praise by others, I'll give you praise.
To be clear, that's not what I was fishing for. I just want
No,
to.
I know. Take care.
I'm sure you know that. I'm just saying this for my audience.
Listen, you called it after Toronto St. Paul's, and I think this kind of open discourse, abrasive as it might be to some, is important, right? Because we're doing this because we give a shit about the Liberal Party and we want this thing to do the best that it can. And it wasn't under Prime Minister Trudeau. And I think today in his resignation speech, he recognized that, right? Yes, it was discussed. He kept saying, I'm a fighter, I'm a fighter, I'm a fighter, I'm a fighter. Yes, but when you're a fighter, when you're a bullfighter, instead of being like a boxer, he was more like a bull, right? Like, he had the blinds on and he was just running at what he thought was the gate, but was actually a brick wall, right? And we were all riding on the back of him. He's now gotten off. I don't think we need to spend any more of our time and energy beating Trudeau, in the sense, well, not beating Trudeau, but commenting on him. All eyes now need to be on, one, the leadership race, and two, like I said, eyes on the fucking prize. Every minute that we're not talking about that, as Mark Miller said, and as the Tories had a meltdown over, every day we're not talking about that greasy walrus is a day wasted. And while the Conservatives are off kilter, they're off balance, they don't know what to do, is a day that we can take advantage of, and we can just hit them. It's like there was a quote from a German general in the Second World War. It's like, the Americans do not know their own plans, so it's very hard to fight them. We do not know our own plans, so that might make it very hard for the Conservatives to fight us going forward, and that's a good thing.
I would say, as any sports fan understands, change that doesn't feel deserved or feel sort of inconsequential can weirdly do things to people's psyches. Like, think about the number of times any sports team has changed their coach and suddenly the exact same message, right? The exact same message being delivered by Greg Ducharme versus Martin St. Louis. No, apparently the Habs were just like, no, we just didn't. We apparently telling us to like back check and remember to play defense. So hey, apparently that mattered, right? Or the Oilers, the 4,000 times they fired coaches in the McDavid era and got on like a 12-game winning streak. Like, for some reason, the same message delivered by a different person can resonate, and I think the Liberals have a better message than some on the right give them credit for. And if the problem is truly the messenger, then it's not hard to see how the Liberals can recover to 27% and 90-ish seats, especially given the fact that Jagmeet Singh is, I was going to say respectfully, but actually, fuck my respect. Jagmeet Singh's a fucking piece of shit. Why do I need to be respectful of him?
Yeah, no, exactly. Champagne social. Champagne.
Do you have any last thoughts before we hang up?
I have lots of thoughts. All I'd say is, final thoughts is, let's be sure to press home the attack when it matters, because right now it does matter. Let's figure out which wagons we're going to hitch ourselves to, and whatever the leader is, we all have our preferences, but I think it's important, barring any massive dichotomy in or disagreement in principle. I think it's in the
Yeah,
best.
yeah. We don't have time. We don't have time to rend your garments about the fact that like we've had elected leader that's like slightly more right wing than your taste. Okay, I had the luxury of doing that with Bonnie Crombie for a year and a half because, or I guess it was a year because she won in December. But like I had the luxury of doing that with Bonnie Crombie because we weren't just staring down the barrel of an election. It's entirely likely that an election is going to be called in in that week in March, right? Like,
Exactly.
and if that's the case, we don't have the time. Lick your wounds, fucking get over it. Like whatever,
and then
Pierre Poilievre is worse.
Exactly, and then we go balls to the wall to try to like keep Pierre Poilievre, restrain him in whatever sense that we can. Now we have a fighting chance. I'm not going to say our chances are great. I'm not going to say the work's over, dusted, our hands are done. Like you said, it's the end of an era, but it's also the beginning of a new one. Now is the time we've unlocked a potential that we can tap into and really fight hard day in, day out in every single riding, in every single debate, race, whatever, on all levels, provincial, national, within the party, outside of the party, on the street, in the bar, in the coffee shop. We now have a fighting chance to say, look, it took us a while, but Canadians wanted to change. We've delivered it. Here is why we're far better than Pierre Poilievre. Because Poilievre's going to have a very difficult time selling the line that he's been trying to sell recently, right? Poilievre's been good at two things. One, he's been decent at wrapping his message, and his message has been just to point out issues, not to propose solutions, because yes, his substantive long form stuff has just been straight up weird. But like, instead of having the luxury of focusing on one target, i.e. Trudeau, he now has to attempt, or he seems like he's going to attempt to try to shoot at like 30. That ain't going to work for him. It's not going to resonate with Canadians. Let's strike while the iron is hot and keep those bastards from forming a supermajority.
And also, any leader can, of course, feel free to ditch the unpopular parts of the legacy and blame those parts of the legacy on Trudeau and entirely invent, if necessary, cabinet disagreement. I've been opposed to this for 3 years. And, respectfully, I don't have a high opinion of Justin Trudeau. I feel like we can trust Justin Trudeau to save airing those grievances until after the election.
Yeah, no, I think, best case
scenario. Basically, we now have a proven structure to ditch the fucking carbon tax, so we should probably do that. Whatever I am one of the few people in Canada who actually thinks the carbon tax is a good idea, but like, I also want to win. So, or
that's
so do what we need to do.
It's a lot bigger discussion, and having done my work terms in industry, both renewable and traditional energy, I've got thoughts on it, but we'll have to do it.
We will trust me. Trust me, as the resident newfie in my life, I'm intending on having you back for a bigger conversation about a progressive environment and energy policy.
Which is necessary. We can't just get rid of it like Polly was saying. We need to replace it with something that works better. But that's all.
Exactly. But we will argue about that at a later point. Beno BOATES 1 on Twitter. Is it Beno 1 or
BOATES 02.
02 on Twitter. You're gonna be I'm gonna have you write some stuff for the site this year.
Cool.
I feel like we should probably announce that.
Aha.
Because again, I want to convert Scrimshaw Unscripted into something less of just me ranting about shit and something more of like a meeting place for a certain brand of like pragmatic progressivism.
Yep.
And I'm excited to have you as one of the contributors to that. Scrimshawunscripted.substack.com for all of my political writing. I'll figure something out for sports at some point, but obviously the Trudeau resignation's kind of got me a little bit wonky. Follow me on Twitter at eScrimshaw. Follow me on Blue Sky at eScrimshaw. I mostly don't tweet on Blue Sky, but I do try and remember that it exists sometimes. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video. I'm doing a podcast at some point this afternoon to explain Canadian politics to Americans. Plus, so you can listen to that if you would like a more sort of broad conversation. And I'm going to continue to live blog between podcast appearances. Thanks so much, Ben, for coming on.
Thanks, Evan. Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye.